Well, hello, guys, and welcome to this ABC 10 feature looking at the 2024 NBA Draft, which actually starts Wednesday, June 26th. You can catch it right here on ABC 10. And we're going to look ahead at this draft, what the Kings should do, what they shouldn't do, and who better than to discuss that than Locked On Kings podcast host and Sacramento Kings expert, the one and only Matt George, joining me here to do this. So, Matt, this year, when you look at this current Kings roster, they made the mistake. Well, I don't know if I should say the mistake, but they made the suggestion or the plan to run it back this year with the roster that they had. They didn't make any moves at all, particularly around the trade deadline. And now here we are this summer, or should I say a few weeks before the draft, and we're looking at this roster from a year ago. So I guess the first thing I want to throw out to you, Matt, is what do the Kings need to do to this roster shall they want to become a playoff caliber team?
Well, I don't think they're far away. I think one of the things De'Aaron Fox said right at the end of last season after they were eliminated in the play-in game by the New Orleans Pelicans was that this was still a good team. They still won 46 games. Now the Western Conference just happened to be fantastic this year, and there's no sign of the Western Conference getting any worse, right? So for me, Kevin, this roster is not far away, but it's clear what they have to upgrade, right? Mike Brown has this idea of how he wants this team to play with kind of a physical, hard-nosed brand on the defensive end of the floor, establish that, and then have the offense be what it is, and that for that to be able to carry you through into the playoffs and hopefully into legitimate championship contention, which they're probably still a year or two away from. But looking for that kind of help in the draft, I got question marks. Like, this team needs more wing depth. They need more athleticism. They need more size. They need guys with 6'8", 6'9", 6'10 measurements, guys with over 7-foot wingspans, athleticism, plus the ability to knock down the three-point shot so they're not a liability on the offensive end and can space the floor so De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis can do their thing. They also need to know what's going to happen with Malik Monk. That has nothing to do with the draft, and the Kings should not approach the draft with Malik Monk in their mind at all. I've seen a lot of people talking about, well, the Kings might consider taking a guard to replace Malik Monk if he walks away. Let's be perfectly clear about something. You can't replace Malik Monk with anything in this draft class, especially at pick 13. So the Kings have options. I certainly have a direction that I think they should go, but Monte McNair loves flexibility, and the draft gives you flexibility with players that you can select. And also, what's an important note about selecting a player, gives you financial flexibility as well, right? You take a player, they're on a rookie scale contract, and that can help you hold down a roster spot while you have to worry about paying Keegan Murray eventually and paying De'Aaron Fox again. So the finances have a part to do with it as well.
Well, let's talk about the draft. The Kings have the unlucky number 13th pick, or it could be lucky, who knows. Now, Matt, you have been extremely vocal that you feel it's in the best interest for the Kings to trade the 13th pick in order to collect assets or to try to get a trade or to do something else with it. Why do you feel that's the best course of action?
Well, the Sacramento Kings team, by the own words of Monte McNair, the general manager, they're trying to win right now. They're in win-now mode. That does not mean that you can't have success adding a rookie. Look at Keegan Murray, the 4th overall pick 2 years ago, comes in, starts right away, and was a part of the Kings getting back to the playoffs. But there's a big difference between 4 and 13, right? Top 4, you're looking for a franchise changer and a starter. At 13, I think at best, realistically, you're looking for a solid role player, which the Kings could absolutely use, and there probably are some names that when we look back at this draft 5 years from now, we'll look back and go, wow, that player was available at 13. Hopefully, maybe the Kings end up selecting him at 13, and we have fond memories of this draft. But for me, this Kings team needs veteran help. They need players that know how to win, who are capable of helping the Sacramento Kings win right now, because that's ultimately their goal. The Western Conference is not going to wait around for the Kings to develop any rookies, plus their core of Fox and Sabonis, they are in their prime right now. You have to maximize your success right now and strike right now. To ask a rookie to do that, I think it goes closer to wasting a roster spot, which is kind of harsh to say, than it is to getting a player that's actually going to help you accomplish your goal.
Well, you know, the funny thing is hindsight is always 20/20, and looking back on this draft 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you never know the talent or how these players are going to develop. So with that being said, Matt, obviously you feel it's in their best interest to trade the 13th pick. Monte McNair and company, they decide they want to hang on to the 13th pick. They decide there's a guy that they like in this draft who they want to go after. It was actually reported today that they were working out a few guys, one of them being the two-time National Player of the Year, Zach Edey out of Purdue. If they hang on to this 13th pick, are there candidates or, your top 3 guys that you think the Kings should go after that can instantly make this team better?
Well, honestly, regardless of their approach to the draft, they have to be doing their homework, which of course they are. Even if they have a plan going into draft night, we want to trade this pick, you have to make sure you have a backup plan, because in a trade, it takes 2 to tango, right? You have to have somebody else ultimately agree to the deal. So the Kings could definitely be looking to trade the pick on draft night, could be aggressively shopping the pick on draft night. They don't find a team, now they're forced to select a player. So they might end up with a player on draft night that's not plan A, but is still an option that they really, really like. And there are some names potentially out there that can help them. I don't believe that just because I strongly encourage the team to trade the pick to go and get a more NBA caliber ready, proven player right now, that doesn't mean that there aren't players out there that can certainly help Sacramento. And this has been labeled a weak draft, Kevin.
Oh, yeah.
That term is very strange, and really it more has to do with the top of the draft. Like, we had Victor Wembanyama last year. A couple of years ago, we had Zion Williamson, right? And those were considered monumentally strong drafts. You know what was considered a weak draft? The Tyrese Halliburton draft, when the Kings took Tyrese at 12, and now look what he's done with the Indiana Pacers, and the Kings turned Tyrese Halliburton into Domantas Sabonis. So weak draft, I'm not going to pay too much attention to that. So if you're looking at names, I mean, I've written a few down. You mentioned Zach Edey. I like the idea of Zach Edey as a 7'3" center coming off the bench behind Domantas Sabonis. He provides you with rim protection, which this team completely lacks. He helps with rebounding. Domantas Sabonis is the league-leading rebounder for 2 straight years, but he can't do it all, so you get some rebounding off the bench. There is concern about the speed of the NBA for a 7'3" guy. I understand that completely. But again, at 13, that's a lower risk than, say, 4 or 5 or 6. You can get away with that. I like the idea of Walter. He's a guard out of Baylor. He's kind of a 3-and-D type wing. He is probably closer to a 2 than a 3, and the Kings have a lot of 2 guards, but he can space the floor. He can play defense, versatile on that end, nearly a 7-foot wingspan, so he can hopefully help with the perimeter defense that was a big problem for the Sacramento Kings. Then you have Tristan da Silva, who is a plug-and-play wing. This guy is 23 years old right now. Monty McNair has been consistent with taking older prospects in the draft. He likes to go out and get guys that are more NBA ready, and that's what this team needs right now. So if you want to go that route, Tristan da Silva might not have as high of an upside as some of these younger prospects that you can mold over the next 2, 3, 4 years, but he's going to come in right away, and if you're looking for an impact player off the bench who can shoot he's a decent shooter and defend his position, then that's not a bad option. I have to mention, too, of course, the local boy, Jared McCain.
Oh!
I like the story. I'm personally not the biggest fan of the idea. Why? It has nothing to do with Jared. It has everything to do with his position. He's a point guard. He's a pure shooting point guard, but he struggles with physicality and he struggles on the defensive end. That doesn't exactly strike me as something the Sacramento Kings need. The shooting is fun. The story of being a local Sacramento product is awesome. If the Kings go that route, it'll be fun to talk about, but the Kings don't need another shooting point guard.
Well, Matt, Jared McCain, the local kid out of Duke. Remember the last person the Kings drafted out of Duke in the year 2018.
We don't have to do this.
They had you, Matt George, making a song about it.
Why are we doing this?
I'm just saying, there's a history with the Kings drafting players out of Duke, at least since 2018. And as a matter of fact, the guy the Kings passed on is currently in the NBA Finals. But anyway, Matt, you hold true to what you believe in, and hopefully you don't have to write a song about one of these guys defending them.
Those days are over.
You say that now.
They're over.
Well, with that being said, one of the things that you mentioned, and I just kind of want to double down on, no pun intended, is that the Kings need truly a solid rim protector along Domantas Sabonis. Having Keegan Murray right now at your 4, by the way, who's a heck of a defender, and Keegan can defend guards. He can defend out on the perimeter. He can shoot the heck out of the ball. He's one of the most versatile small forwards in the league. When I say that, offensively and defensively, but the Kings need a true rim protector alongside Domantas Sabonis. We saw that. That's what I thought JaVale McGee was going to be when he came here. Obviously, he wasn't as much in the rotation as he was earlier in the season with them. But I personally feel having somebody to, like a Jared Allen kind of player, or, someone that can basically help out below in the paint, because the Kings, they don't really have that right now. I mean, sure, Alex Len has come in and gave them valuable minutes. JaVale McGee has come off the bench and helped out when needed, but they don't have a solid night in, night out, in rotation rim protector that the Kings can count on. And I think that's going to be pivotal moving forward for this franchise.
Yeah, rim protection is something this franchise could absolutely use more of. However, philosophy is interesting because Mike Brown is not a big fan of the block stat because blocks don't secure you the possession, right? Slapping a ball out of bounds, the other team still gets the ball, right? He cares more about getting a stop and securing a defensive rebound. He cares about the changing of possessions. Now, rim protection is not just blocking shots, right? Rim protection is changing shots at the rim. Having a guy like Zach Edey, who's 7'3", Jarrett Allen, like you mentioned, one of those really long guys who, when they put their hands up in the air, they're basically 8 feet tall, right? Having to try and shoot over that or around that, it's difficult for any guard or wing who's trying to attack the basket. I understand what you're saying, absolutely, and if the Kings can get that and address that in the draft or free agency, they should absolutely look to do that. But it was perimeter defense where Sacramento was terrible last season. Like, giving up 3-point shots, they were horrendous. And Mike Brown pointed out in the middle of the season, if the Kings were league average at defending the 3-point shot, meaning the opposing 3-point percentage was in the mid to low 30s, then the Sacramento Kings would have been a top 10 defensive team. That's how crazy, right? Because their rim protection, it wasn't great, but it was their interior protection was a whole lot of heck of a lot better than their exterior possession, where it felt like every single time a team came into Sacramento and took on the Kings in the Golden One Center, they shot the you-know-what out the ball.
Yep.
Right? It just felt like that. And to me, that comes from your size, your athleticism. Look, Davion Mitchell, great defender. Keon Ellis, great defender. Those two guys are 6'3", 6'1".
I have the same wingspan as them.
Exactly, and that doesn't mean that they're small, they're tiny, but if there's a 6'8" guy out on the perimeter who's trying to shoot and already is athletic enough to get good height on their jump shot, a 6'3" guy closing out as hard as he's working, you can shoot over the top of that. That's why the Kings need more 6'8", 6'9" guys who not only can stay in front of you, cut off the passing lanes and not let you go by him, but he can also close out and disrupt a shooter enough to hopefully bring that percentage down. So if I'm prioritizing anything on the defensive end, I'm prioritizing athleticism, I'm prioritizing perimeter defense, and I'm prioritizing like hustle, physicality. The Kings want to play physical. That's how they were playing to end the season. That's where they saw some defensive success.
Turn on the Jets, indeed. Well, absolutely. That's Matt George once again, Locked On Kings podcast host. You can definitely watch him there for all of your Kings content throughout the summer. Just want to remind you guys again, the draft, it's 2 days, June 26th and 27th, and you can watch it right here on ABC 10. Matt, before we get out of here, any final words on the draft?
To be honest with you, and I've said this before, I said this on Locked On Kings, I was not expecting to care or pay that much attention to the draft this year, right? Because the Sacramento Kings or if they had made the playoffs, this pick would have gone to Atlanta as part of the Kevin Huerter trade. In many ways, for their availability and flexibility to make bigger trades down the line, that probably would have been better for them. But it's never a bad thing to have an asset, right? And the Kings are in control of their assets. They're not in the position of some other teams like the Phoenix Suns, for example, or the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are good teams, solid teams, but don't really have any flexibility to make trades or anything like that. The Kings are in a position to where they don't have to make a move right now. They definitely want to, but they do not have to. But if they do find the right move, they have the pieces, they own their assets that they can go out and make that big swing. So the West is difficult. It's going to be a struggle, right? The West isn't waiting around for the Sacramento Kings. But if the Kings want to strike, they're in a position to do it. And that's what makes draft night, I think, exciting.
Absolutely. And with Mike Brown getting his extension a couple of weeks ago, at least we know he's going to be around. And we'll see if Monty will give him a roster that can get, into the playoffs or not saying championship caliber team next year, but to at least make a run because...
Just get him on the same page. Start there. Get Mike Brown's philosophy and your roster on the same page because right now you have Mike Brown who wants to play a physical brand of defense with a roster full of a bunch of offensive talent. 2 years ago or 2 seasons ago, that season was fantastic, scoring a lot, making it to the NBA playoffs, but ultimately the Kings lost in the first round. Mike Brown's been telling us these offensively driven teams can only go so far. He wants to play a certain way. He knows what it takes to win a ring. Go out and give him a roster that is capable of playing the way that he wants to. And then at that point, if it doesn't work, we know who to look at.
Matt George, exactly.
Oh, sure.
We'll make that happen.
I'll take the blame for Mike. I don't care. I love Mike.
Of course, we all love Mike Brown here. With that being said, yes, of course, defensive-minded, offense sells tickets, defense wins championships, and if you're watching the NBA Finals, you know exactly what we're talking
The
about.
Celtics are doing both, and look at them. They're probably, I mean, we're recording this
Yeah,
at the start of the
exactly.
game.
Before.
I think they're going to win it. I think they're going to win it this year. They're great on offense and defense. Ultimately, that's where you want to get to. That's what Mike's trying to do.
All right, so if the Celtics don't win, I'm going to replay that clip in a couple of weeks just for you guys.
They're going to win.
All right.
Dallas, you're done.
Wow.
No
okay.
problem. No problem calling my shot.
There you go. Well, you double down on that. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching this special feature here. Now, if you want more features like this, you can stay up to date on it on our ABC 10 Plus app. There you guys can find the latest newscasts and headlines. You can also watch the latest Locked On Kings episode on there as well, and stay up to date with the weather and see all the great work and stories we tell here at ABC 10. Once again, I'm Kevin John. That is Matt George. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Light the beam.